The morning of my college graduation, I had a great excuse to not attend the ceremony. I needed to take Tina and our baby girl to the airport so that they could fly to Idaho to stay with my parents while I was going to be in Alabama for officer training school. Graduation was on a Saturday morning. I didn't really care much for those kinds of festivities because, again, the degree was just a means to an end. Besides, I had to be at OTS on Monday morning. I gave the registrar my parents' address, and here it is 22 years later. I've still never actually seen my diploma. But who cares? Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama is home to the Air Force's professional development schools. All throughout the finely manicured base, you see static displays of aircraft, not so subtly reminding us that the Air Force is all about airplanes. It's day one of training, and I'm standing in the classroom with my 13 flight mates. The tables are arranged in a U-shaped pattern, and we're all looking at each other, kind of sizing up who these flight mates are who we're going to be with for the next 12 weeks. And you can see the tiredness and uncertainty on everyone's face. And in some of those faces, you can clearly see fear of the unknown. Nobody really knows what to expect. We were wearing these woodland camouflage BDUs, and we had the old Vietnam era canteen belts with the canteens, and we were told to take them off and put them on the table. And we haven't met our flight commander yet, right? This is the person who's going to make us officers. And so we're awaiting her arrival, and I look around the room and I see how everyone has just thrown their web belt and canteen onto the table. And I said, look guys, look at this. We need to straighten this up. This all needs to be uniform. So I showed everybody how to fold their belt to make it look nice and neat and place the canteens in the middle with the caps facing outward. And we all did that to make it all look the same, because I knew that's one thing they're always looking for is uniformity. Everything has to be organized and uniform. So I had a huge advantage being prior enlisted, because I knew even with all the yelling from the TIs that morning, you guys aren't going to make it here. Do you even think you belong here? All that kind of stuff. I knew that at least they couldn't hit us, right? So I didn't have to worry about that. Some of my flight mates, I don't think they were so sure about that. So I was feeling pretty comfortable. I wasn't entirely out of my element. In my career field in security forces, it was not unusual to get put at attention and get yelled at. That happened in the Air Force that I was in. Half of my class were going to be engineers, and there were a couple of pilot candidates, navigator candidates, myself included. And I'm probably going to catch some heat for this, but unofficially the lowest on the hierarchy of aeronautically graded officers is the Air Battle Manager. So there were some of them in here as well. But right now we're all just trainees, and we're all just lined up, standing behind our chair at attention, waiting to see what's going to happen next. Then I hear the sound of tables and chairs shuffling in the room next door, and a little bit of muffled yelling. And I'm pretty sure I know what's going on over there. And I'm ready for it because, like I said, we have got our tables and chairs all straight, canteens and everything lined up perfectly. So we're waiting there, and the sound of the door latch opens. We all snap a little straighter. And by this point, I'm actually starting to get a little bit amused by the looks on some of my classmates' faces. They are really terrified. And then in walks this little pale-faced woman, all of maybe 5'2", and she's got this stern look on her face, trying to be really mean looking. She's got this little brown ponytail, and she hurries up to the front of the classroom to gain a vantage point over all of her terrified subjects, right? And she looks out over the room, and I see her brows raise up, and I can tell that she's surprised by the order of the desks and the canteens on the desk. And dare I say, a little bit impressed, I think, as well. She was silent for a moment. She clearly didn't know what to say, because I think I stole her thunder. Let the games begin. We lived in dormitories with just one other roommate, like civilized human beings, as compared to basic training, where there was a large open room with 60 beds and 60 different flavors of BO in there. So this was a really nice change of pace. And the TIs, the training instructors with the big blue brimmed Smokey the Bear hats, yeah, they yelled at us from time to time, but they contracted out most of the harassment to the upper class above us. So that was a nice change of pace too. I find it kind of comical that we were required to bring laptops, and printers were strongly encouraged, because there was so much training on administrative duties. This is the Air Force after all, right? And that wasn't the hardest part of it. The harassment wasn't the hardest part of it. The most difficult thing for me was I still couldn't let go of wanting to be a pilot. I was still making phone calls to the personnel center, trying to see that since I was already in the officer pipeline, if there could just be a switch of paperwork. I still hadn't given up. And this was very distracting because we all knew who the pilots were in the class, who the pilot candidates were. And so I was constantly comparing myself to them. So I paid attention to how fast they were running around the track and how many laps could they complete. I noticed when one of them would get flustered during a leadership exercise. And I would think to myself, the Air Force is essentially saying that that guy is better than me. I would find ways to casually interrogate them to find out about their package and what the board might have seen in them. So, how many flight hours did you have when you applied? That sort of thing. And I shook my head when I learned that one of the pilot candidates had a degree in hospitality and tourism. Some of them were really sharp and others were not that impressive. So I really couldn't find a common link between what it was that got these guys selected. But when it came to the navigators and the air battle managers, there were a lot of common links. In general, we struggled with running and we struggled with push-ups. We struggled with having a commanding voice during the leadership exercises. And as a whole, we also struggled with meeting the waist measurement requirement. So seeing how the Air Force classified me did not help with my inferiority complex. And what made it even worse was one evening when we had our new class come in, we were the upper class now, so it was our duties and responsibilities to harass the lower class. We went into their hallway and made them all come outside so that we could just grill them on their handbook knowledge and just general harassment, essentially. I wasn't super excited about this, but there were some guys in the class that got really into it. So they led the way down the hallway, yelling at everybody, get outside, get out here, at attention against the wall. And we finally got everybody outside, and there was this one guy. He was actually, looked pretty fit, pretty muscular, tall guy. He was at attention against the wall, and these two pilot candidates actually just went after him because he was the last one out. So they were just berating him on being slow and telling him he wasn't going to make it here, that sort of thing. And it was a little embarrassing. I felt kind of bad for the guy because you could see like his eyes, there were tears welling up in his eyes. So I think they let up when they saw the expression on his face that this wasn't going well. It was a little embarrassing to see how soft this grown man was to be brought to tears in this way. And then I find out the next morning that he withdrew from training, so he quit essentially. I guess he wasn't too excited about being a navigator either. After enduring those 12 weeks, our families were ushered into the small auditorium for the graduation ceremony. I raised my right hand and swore to defend the Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic, and I was administered the oath by an acquaintance at a previous military assignment. And so right after he commissioned me, I was asked by two of my flight mates to commission them since I was now a commissioned officer and eligible to administer the oath unto them. And I was very honored to be asked to commission my two flight mates. And by this time I was, even though I wasn't excited about being a navigator, I was still very grateful for the position that I was in. I was still an officer in the world's greatest Air Force. And I was excited for Tina, and I was excited for our baby daughter and for our future. I knew that I was going to be able to give them what they deserved. But ironically, my first night with my new status did not go as planned. This was the fall of 2004, and Hurricanes Rita and Katrina had just ravaged the Gulf Coast. We had planned to leave Alabama that afternoon and stay the night in Louisiana on our way back to San Antonio, but all the hotels were occupied. There were no vacancies. So after we got turned away at our last hotel, I just drove around to the back of the parking lot and we locked the doors and reclined the seats and stayed there for the night. In the morning, the sun rose through the tall Louisiana pines and we looked at each other. Tina put the sleeping baby in the back. Then we were on our way back to San Antonio to start navigator training. We were returning in a much better condition than we were when we left. And I felt so blessed to be giving my family this opportunity for this exciting future that we had ahead of us. All I had to do was just try to forget about flying airplanes. If only it would have been that easy. I hope you come back for chapter 11 to see how I dealt with it. Thanks for watching.